Take your filthy hands off her, right now. The roar tore through the ballroom. Music stopped mid-note. A woman near the bar gasped. Crystal chimed against crystal as hands froze in place. At the center of the room, Daniel Whitmore, real estate magnate, host of the evening, had Nina's wrist twisted in his fist. "You don't get to tell me what to do in my own house," Whitmore snapped. His face flushed red with bourbon. He yanked her closer. "This has nothing to do with you. Moretti, she committed a serious offense. Do you see this?" He slapped at his soaked lapel with his free hand. "This is a custom Italian suit. $12,000. She ruined it. She doesn't walk away from that." Nina's breath caught. "I said I'm sorry, sir. I'll pay for the cleaning." "You?" Whitmore barked. "You'd have to work a year to pay for this." Laughter flickered at the edges of the crowd. Nervous, cowardly, Vincent Moretti stepped forward. He did not rush. He did not raise his arms. He simply walked, and the space in front of him opened like water parting around stone. 40 years old, 6 feet tall. Dark tailored suit. Calm posture. The kind of calm that made grown men uncomfortable. Whitmore tightened his grip when he saw him coming. "I said this doesn't concern you," Whitmore growled. "Handle your shipping contracts. I'll handle my staff." Vincent stopped an arm's length away. His eyes dropped briefly to Nina's wrist. The skin was already turning white beneath Whitmore's fingers. Then he looked up. "Take your filthy hands off her. Right now." The words weren't shouted wildly. They were delivered with controlled force, deep and absolute. The kind of tone that did not get ignored. Whitmore scoffed. "Or what?" Vincent's hand moved. He caught Whitmore's wrist and applied pressure, not enough to break, just enough to inform. Whitmore's smirk faltered. "I don't repeat myself," Vincent said quietly. For a moment, it was only the three of them, the drunk host, the trembling waitress, and the man everyone in the room knew better than to provoke. Whitmore released her. Nina stumbled back. The silver tray slipped from her hand. Glass exploded across the marble floor. She lost her balance. Vincent caught her before she hit the ground. The room stayed silent. Nina's breathing was fast, shallow. "I'm fine," she whispered, though she wasn't steady. Vincent's arm remained around her just long enough to keep her upright. Whitmore flexed his fingers, trying to recover dignity. "You just assaulted me." Vincent didn't answer him. Instead, he looked down at Nina. "Can you stand?" he asked. She nodded, swallowing. "Yes." As she straightened, the top button of her uniform, strained from the struggle, slipped loose. The fabric shifted. Vincent saw it. A small crescent-shaped birthmark, just above the center of her chest. His vision narrowed. He had that mark. Same shape, same place. He felt the echo of his mother's voice from decades ago. A kitchen in South Boston. Steam rising from tomato sauce. "It runs in my family," she had told him, touching the spot above his heart. "A little moon. So we never forget. We belong to each other." Vincent hadn't thought about that in 20 years. "What's your name?" he asked. The question surprised her. "Nina," she said cautiously. "Nina Carter." Carter, his father's last name. The air in the room felt heavier. "How old are you, Nina?" 29. The math aligned too cleanly. Whitmore straightened his jacket angrily. "Are we done here?" "She embarrassed me in front of my guests. You're making this bigger than it needs to be." Vincent finally looked at him. "You grabbed a woman half your size because of a dry cleaning bill," he said evenly. "That's already bigger than it should be." Whitmore's jaw tightened. "You think you scare me?" The room knew the answer. Vincent stepped closer just enough. "I don't need to." Whitmore said nothing after that. Vincent removed a folded white handkerchief from his inner pocket and handed it to Nina. "For your wrist." She looked down. Red finger marks were already forming. "Thank you," she said softly. Their eyes met fully now. Blue. His were gray. But his mother's had been blue. Something shifted inside him, sharp, unfamiliar. He turned to one of his men near the doorway. "Make sure she gets home safely." "That won't be necessary," Nina said quickly. "I drove." "Then make sure she leaves without being stopped," Vincent corrected, not breaking eye contact with Whitmore. His man nodded once. The jazz band resumed cautiously. Conversations restarted. Quieter now. Whitmore adjusted his cufflinks, pretending the moment had passed. "Next time," he muttered. "Mind your own business." Vincent's expression didn't change. "When someone weaker is being hurt," he said calmly, "it becomes my business." No one laughed. Nina stepped backward toward the service corridor. still shaken but standing straight. She gave Vincent a small, uncertain nod before disappearing behind the double doors. Vincent remained where he was. The scent of spilled bourbon lingered in the air. His hand rose unconsciously to the center of his own chest, pressing lightly against the fabric where the crescent mark lay hidden. Carter, 29. Crescent moon. Across the room, Whitmore resumed boasting to his investors, voice louder than necessary. Vincent no longer heard him. He stared at the service doors long after Nina vanished behind them. Something inside him had just shifted, and for the first time in 2 decades, Vincent Moretti felt the ground move beneath the empire he had built. Vincent did not stay for dessert. He endured another 15 minutes of forced conversation, nodded at numbers he barely heard, and shook hands that suddenly felt irrelevant. When he finally stepped out into the cold Massachusetts night, the air cut sharp and clean against his face. His driver opened the back door of the black Escalade. "Home, sir." "Yes." The estate gates closed behind them with a metallic finality. For a long stretch of road, neither man spoke. Streetlights slid across the tinted windows in steady intervals, flashing over Vincent's reflection. He touched his chest again. Crescent moon. Carter, 29. The math would not leave him alone. He had been 12 when the divorce was finalized. Old enough to understand shouting. Old enough to understand silence. Not old enough to stop either. His father had taken his little sister. "She needs stability," Daniel Carter had said in court. A father's discipline. Vincent remembered his mother's face when the judge agreed. By the time he was 15, he stopped asking where his sister was. By 20, he stopped saying her name. By 25, when his mother died from a quiet heart condition no one caught in time, he had already learned that survival required shutting doors. He built an empire instead. The car turned onto the private road leading to his townhouse in Back Bay. Brick exterior, iron gate, no wasted decoration. Inside, the house was immaculate and impersonal. Dark wood floors, leather furniture, a fireplace that had not been used in years. Vincent loosened his tie and walked straight to the study. On the far wall hung a single framed photograph, faded, slightly crooked. His mother seated at a kitchen table. Vincent standing behind her, thin and serious at 14, and in her lap, a little girl with pale blonde hair and bright blue eyes, 3 years old, a faint crescent mark just visible above the neckline of her dress. Vincent stood in front of the photo for a long time. "Find her," his mother had whispered in the hospital, her voice already fading. "She won't survive him." At 25, Vincent had promised. Then life, anger, ambition, power had swallowed that promise whole. A promise made in a hospital room, a sister lost to silence, and a truth that waited 20 years to be spoken. If this moment moved you, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us for stories where justice finally finds its way home. He turned away from the wall and picked up his phone. "Marco." A voice answered immediately. "Yes, boss. I need a full background on a woman. Nina Carter, 29, works catering in Boston. I want everything. Birth certificate, social security trace, employment history, school records, hospital visits. And I want it done quietly." There was a pause. "Understood. Anything specific we're looking for?" Vincent's jaw tightened. "Start with her father, Daniel Carter, Ohio originally. See if he relocated." Marco exhaled slowly. "The same, Carter?" "Yes." Another silence. Longer this time. "I'll get started." "DNA," Vincent added. "I want confirmation. That may take. I don't care how long it takes. Do it properly." He ended the call. The study felt smaller now. Vincent poured himself a glass of bourbon but did not drink it. He set it down untouched on the desk. His mind replayed the scene in the ballroom. Whitmore's fingers digging into her skin. The way she apologized automatically. Not defiant, not dramatic, just conditioned. He had seen that posture before. Children who learned early that resistance cost more than submission. His phone buzzed. Marco again. Efficient as always. "I found a preliminary hit," Marco said. "Nina Carter, born Columbus, Ohio. Mother listed as deceased. Father, Daniel Carter. Same date of birth as your father. Same social security trail until 2002. After that, things get messy." Vincent closed his eyes briefly. "Messy how?" "Multiple arrests, domestic disturbance calls, public intoxication, Short stints in county jail. Nothing long-term. He moved frequently. Trailer parks mostly. A quiet pressure built behind Vincent's ribs. What about her? He asked. Dropped out of high school at 17. No college. Several low-wage jobs. Restaurant server. Housekeeping. Now catering staff. No criminal record. No criminal record. Any hospital visits? Vincent asked. Yes. 2 ER visits before she turned 18. Broken wrist once. Concussion another time. The room went very still. Cause? Reported as fall downstairs both times. Vincent let out a slow breath through his nose. And after 18? Nothing significant. She left Ohio around 19. Bounced between cities. Been in Massachusetts for 3 years. Vincent looked again at the photo on the wall. While he had been negotiating shipping routes and expanding freight lines across the East Coast, she had been surviving in trailer parks and emergency rooms. Get the DNA, he said quietly. I'll need a sample. I'll handle that. He ended the call. For a long moment, he simply stood there. Then he walked to the safe built into the wall behind a bookshelf. He entered the code and opened it. Inside were documents, cash, a pistol, and a small velvet box. He opened it carefully. Inside lay his mother's wedding ring and a folded hospital bracelet from the day his sister was born. He had taken it from a drawer the week after the funeral. He had kept it without knowing why. The bracelet read, Baby Girl Carter. No first name. He closed the box slowly. You're late, he murmured to the empty room. The next morning arrived gray and overcast. Vincent's car pulled up outside the catering company warehouse at 8 sharp. He did not bring security inside. He went alone. The office smelled of coffee and industrial cleaner. A woman in her 50s sat behind the desk, reading glasses perched low on her nose. Can I help you? She asked, polite but wary. I'm looking for Nina Carter. The woman stiffened slightly. She's on shift prep. Are you family? Vincent paused. The word felt foreign in his mouth. Possibly. The woman studied him, measuring. She's in the back. He walked past metal racks of folded linens and stainless steel counters. Nina stood near a prep table, tying her apron. No makeup. Hair pulled back again. There was a faint yellow bruise on her wrist beneath the red marks from the night before. She looked up when she sensed someone approaching. Recognition flickered across her face. You again? Yes. She wiped her hands on a towel. If this is about last night, you don't need to check on me. I kept my job. That's not why I'm here. She crossed her arms slightly, defensive but composed. Then why? Vincent held her gaze. I need to ask you about your father. The shift in her expression was immediate. Cold. I don't have one. Vincent nodded once. That's what I thought. She turned back to the prep table. Whatever you think you're digging for, I'm not interested in drama. I go to work. I pay rent. That's it. Vincent stepped closer, lowering his voice. What if I told you your life didn't start in Ohio? Her hands stilled. What if I told you your mother wasn't who you think she was? Silence stretched between them. She didn't look at him. Careful, she said quietly. That's not something you play with. Vincent swallowed. I'm not playing. She finally faced him fully. Then say it, she demanded. Say whatever you came here to say. Vincent held her eyes. And for the first time in 20 years, he allowed the possibility to become real. I think you're my sister. Nina didn't laugh. She didn't gasp either. She just stared at him as if he had spoken in a language she didn't recognize. I think you're my sister. The words lingered between them, heavy and impossible. That's not funny, she said at last. I'm not trying to be. Her jaw tightened. You don't get to walk in here in a $3,000 suit and rewrite my life because you saw something you liked. I didn't like it, Vincent replied evenly. I recognized it. She folded her arms across her chest again, protective. Recognized? What? A birthmark, he said. Crescent-shaped. Center of the chest. Her eyes flickered just for a fraction of a second. You were staring, she said sharply. Yes, that doesn't give you the right to invent a family. I'm not inventing anything. The kitchen behind them buzzed with low conversation and the clang of trays. No one seemed to notice the tension at the prep table. Nina lowered her voice. My father's name is Daniel Carter. My mother died when I was little. That's the story. End of story. Vincent inhaled slowly. My father's name was Daniel Carter, he said. My mother died 15 years ago. I was 12 when they divorced. You were 3. Her expression hardened. I wasn't 3. You're 29, he replied. Born in Columbus, Ohio, August 14th. She went very still. Public records, she said. But the confidence had faded. Yes, he said. Public records. Silence again. Then she shook her head. No, this is no. My father never mentioned a son. Mine never mentioned you either after the divorce, Vincent said. He had custody. The word custody seemed to strike something in her. She looked away. My mother fought for you, he continued quietly. She lost, Nina swallowed. You expect me to just believe that? No. He reached slowly into his coat pocket and removed a small envelope. I expect you to test it. She eyed the envelope but didn't take it. What is it? A private lab requisition. DNA confirmation. Neutral facility. You can choose the date. I'll submit my sample today. She stared at it as though it might explode. And if I say no, then I walk away, Vincent said. But I needed to ask. Her laugh this time was brittle. You needed to ask. Yes. You show up out of nowhere. You grab my father's name like it's evidence. And now, you need something. Vincent held her gaze. I need to know if I failed you. That landed. Her composure faltered. Just slightly. You don't get credit for guilt you didn't earn, she said. Maybe not, he replied. But if you're my sister, you paid for his choices. And I built a life pretending I didn't have one. She searched his face, looking for manipulation, for arrogance, for threat. Instead, she found something else. Not softness. He didn't know how to do softness, but something raw. You don't even know me, she whispered. I know you were in the ER twice before you turned 18, he said quietly. Broken wrist, concussion. Her face drained of color. That's public record? She asked. No. The noise in the kitchen seemed to fade around them. Did he do that? Vincent asked. Her breathing changed. That's none of your business. If I'm wrong, he said carefully, I apologize and disappear. He didn't finish. She looked down at her wrist, at the fading red imprint from Whitmore's grip the night before. My father drank, she said flatly. A lot of men drink. That's not what I asked. Her jaw tightened. He had a temper. Vincent felt his pulse slow into something colder. And you left at 18. I ran, she corrected, to Massachusetts, eventually, and he's still alive. She looked up sharply. You've been digging. Yes. That's not your right. No, he agreed. It isn't. That seemed to disarm her more than defensiveness would have. She stared at the envelope again. Why now? She asked quietly. Why after 29 years? Because last night, Vincent said, when I saw him grabbing you. That wasn't him. No, Vincent said. But it looked familiar. The truth in that statement hung heavy. Nina's shoulders sagged slightly. Even if this is real, she said, what do you expect? Some reunion? Sunday dinners? A mansion? I expect nothing, he said. I offer confirmation. And then? Then you decide. She hesitated, then took the envelope. Her fingers brushed his briefly. He noticed how small her hand was compared to his. You're serious, she murmured. Yes. And, if this test says you're wrong, I accept it. And, if it says you're right? Vincent exhaled slowly. Then I become what I should have been. She studied him again. You don't look like someone who does things halfway. I don't. That's what scares me. A faint noise from the office signaled that her manager was approaching. Nina slipped the envelope into her apron pocket. I'm not promising anything, she said. I'll think about it. That's enough. She stepped back toward the prep table, reclaiming space. As he turned to leave, she spoke again. If this is some power move, she said without looking at him. If this is about control, it's not. How would I know? Vincent paused at the doorway. You wouldn't, he admitted. Not yet. He left without another word. Outside, the sky threatened rain. Marco's call came before Vincent reached his car. We secured the lab. Sample appointment is ready. She took the form, Vincent said. That's good. Vincent looked back at the warehouse. Through a narrow window, he could see Nina moving between tables, head down, working. She doesn't trust easily, Marco observed. She shouldn't, Vincent replied. There was a brief silence. Boss, Marco added carefully. If this is true, it complicates things. I know. Your enemies will not touch her, Vincent said firmly. The certainty in his tone ended the discussion. He got into the car and closed the door. As they pulled away, Vincent felt something unfamiliar pressing against his carefully constructed life. Hope, yes, but also consequence. Because if Nina Carter was truly his sister, then Daniel Carter was not just a ghost from the past. He was still out there. And men like Daniel did not disappear quietly. The rain started just after noon. Not a storm. Just a steady, cold Massachusetts rain that turned the city gray and reflective. Vincent watched it slide down the windows of his office on the top floor of Moretti Logistics. Boston Harbor stretched beyond the glass. Cargo ships moved slowly through the mist. Steel, freight, contracts, these were things he understood. They followed rules. They responded to pressure. Family did not. Marco stood near the doorway, tablet in hand. "We confirmed Daniel Carter's current address," he said. "Low-income housing outside Worcester. 2 DUIs in the last 5 years. No stable employment." Vincent didn't turn around. "Any outstanding warrants?" "None active. A few expired misdemeanors." "And income?" "Small disability checks. Odd construction jobs. He's behind on rent." Vincent nodded once. "Has he contacted Nina?" "Not recently," Marco said. "Phone records show sporadic calls over the years. Nothing in the last 6 months." That detail lodged in Vincent's mind. 6 months of silence. He turned slowly from the window. "I want eyes on him," he said. "Discreet. No contact." Marco hesitated. "If he sees surveillance, he'll get paranoid. He already is. And if he figures out Nina is connected to you?" Vincent's expression hardened. "He won't." Marco studied him carefully. "You're assuming she agrees to the test." "She will." That wasn't arrogance. It was instinct. Marco nodded and left. Alone again, Vincent sat behind his desk and opened a drawer he rarely touched. Inside were old documents, custody papers, yellowed and creased. He had obtained copies years ago when he first tried to track his sister down. Back then, Daniel Carter had vanished off-grid. No forwarding address. No stable employment. A ghost who didn't want to be found. Vincent had been building his business then, clawing his way through port contracts and shipping monopolies. By the time he had resources to dig deeper, the trail had gone cold. He closed the drawer. That night, Nina didn't call. She didn't text. She didn't schedule the DNA appointment. Vincent didn't expect her to. Trust built slowly when it had been broken early. The next morning, he found himself driving somewhere he hadn't visited in years. South Boston, the old neighborhood. Brick row houses lined tight streets. Italian bakeries that still opened at dawn. Flags hanging from porches. Men in their 60s sitting outside corner stores drinking coffee from paper cups. He parked near the church his mother used to attend. The doors were open. Inside, the air smelled faintly of wax and wood polish. Colored light filtered through stained glass, casting soft patterns across the pews. Vincent sat in the back. He didn't pray. He never had much use for it. But he sat there anyway. His mother's voice lived in this place. "You protect what's yours," she used to say. "But you don't become what hurt you." At 12, he hadn't understood. At 40, he did. A phone buzz interrupted the quiet. "Nina," he answered immediately. "Yes." There was a long pause on the other end. "I scheduled the test," she said. Relief did not show in his voice. "When?" "Friday, 10 a.m. I'll be there." "I didn't ask you to." "I know." Silence again. "You had no right to pull my hospital records," she said finally. "You're right. You did anyway." "Yes." She exhaled slowly. "You don't apologize much, do you?" "No." Another pause. "My father used to say sorry after," she said. "After the yelling. After the breaking things. After the hospital." Vincent's jaw tightened. "I'm not him." "I don't know that yet." "That's fair." She hesitated. "Why didn't you look for me sooner?" she asked suddenly. The question hit harder than he expected. "I did," he said. "For a while." "That's not an answer." He stared at the stained glass ahead. "I was 25 when my mother died," he said quietly. "She made me promise to find you. I tried. But your father moved. Constantly. Changed jobs. Changed addresses. After a few years, I redirected." "To money?" she asked. "To control," he corrected. "Same thing. Not entirely." She didn't respond. "I built something," he continued, "and told myself it mattered more. And now? Now I'm not sure it does." The vulnerability in that admission surprised even him. On the other end of the line, Nina's breathing softened slightly. "I don't want your empire," she said. I don't want your empire, she said. "I don't need saving. I'm not offering either." "Then what are you offering?" He answered without hesitation. The truth. Friday arrived cold and bright. The lab was neutral, professional, quiet. No one there knew who Vincent Moretti was beyond the name on the paperwork. Nina arrived alone. She wore jeans and a simple sweater. No makeup. Hair down this time. For a moment, they stood facing each other in the waiting room like strangers forced into proximity. "You came," she said. "So did you." She held his gaze longer today. "After this," she said. "There's no undoing it." "I know." They were called in separately. Cheek swabs, paperwork, signatures, clinical, efficient. It would take a few days for results. When they exited the building, the sun felt too bright. "Well," she said, crossing her arms lightly. "Now we wait." "Yes." She shifted her weight. "If this comes back positive, what does that make us?" He considered the question carefully. "Related," he said first. "That's biological." "Yes." "And emotionally? That's up to you." She searched his face again. "You really don't expect anything, do you?" "I expect consequences," he said. "But not compliance." That earned the faintest hint of a smile. "My father always expected compliance," she murmured. Vincent's voice lowered. "And what do you expect?" She looked past him at the street. "I expect him to find out," she said. Vincent went still. "Why would he?" "Because he always finds out," she replied. "He has a way of smelling opportunity." A cold edge slipped into Vincent's tone. "He won't come near you. You don't know that." "I do." She studied him carefully. That sounded like a threat. It was a promise. Something unreadable passed through her eyes. "If he shows up," she said quietly, "you don't get to handle it your way. My way. You know what I mean." Vincent held her gaze. "I won't become him," he said evenly. For the first time, she nodded, as if she believed that at least a little. "I have to get to work," she said. "I'll drive you." "No," she replied quickly. "I drove myself." He didn't argue. She walked toward her car, then stopped and looked back. "If this test says we're related," she called out, "you don't get to buy me." "I wouldn't try." She studied him one last time. "Good." She drove away. Vincent remained standing on the sidewalk long after her car disappeared. He had faced rival syndicates without blinking, but this waiting on a lab result felt different, because power could not influence blood. And somewhere in Worcester, a man named Daniel Carter was still breathing. The results came on a Tuesday morning. Vincent was halfway through a logistics briefing when his secure phone vibrated against the polished conference table. He didn't check it immediately. He finished issuing instructions about freight rerouting, signed 2 documents, dismissed the room. Only when the door closed did he look down. Private lab, results available. For a moment, he didn't move. Then he opened the file. Probability of biological sibling relationship, 99.98%. The numbers were clinical, impersonal, absolute. Vincent leaned back in his chair slowly. He had negotiated hostile takeovers with less tension than this. She wasn't a possibility anymore. She was his sister. The office suddenly felt too quiet. He stood, walked to the window overlooking the harbor, and pressed his hand lightly against his chest where the crescent mark lay beneath his shirt. "We found her," he murmured under his breath, unsure whether he meant it for himself or for the woman in the old photograph hanging at home. His phone buzzed again. "Nina." He answered immediately. "They emailed you too?" she asked without greeting. "Yes." Silence. He could hear traffic in the background on her end. A distant horn. The wind. "So," she said finally, "I guess that makes it official." "Yes." She let out a short, disbelieving breath. "I kept staring at the screen like maybe the numbers would change." "They won't." "No," she said. "They won't." Another pause. "This is real," she said quietly. "Yes." He expected anger, shock, demands. Instead, what he heard was something smaller, fragility. "Where are you?" he asked. "Outside my apartment." "Are you alone?" "Yes." "Stay there. I didn't ask you to come." "I know." He ended the call before she could argue. The drive across the city felt longer than usual, not because of traffic, because his mind was racing through 27 lost years. He pulled up outside a modest brick apartment building in Somerville. 2 stories. Small balconies. Laundry hanging on one railing. Nina stood near the entrance, arms folded, shoulders stiff against the cold. She looked different in daylight without fluorescent kitchen lighting. Tired, guarded, strong in a way that came from surviving without backup. He stepped out of the car. They stood facing each other on the sidewalk like they had at the lab. "Well," she said, lifting her chin slightly. Congratulations. You found your missing sibling. I didn't lose you, he said quietly. You were taken. She flinched at that. That doesn't change the years. No, he agreed. Cars passed behind them. A woman walked a dog across the street, casting a curious glance at the black SUV and the well-dressed man in front of the modest building. So what now? Nina asked. Now, he said, we decide what this means. She let out a soft, humorless laugh. You say that like we're negotiating a contract. I negotiate for a living. This isn't business. I know. She studied him carefully. I don't feel different, she admitted. I don't suddenly have memories. I don't remember you. You were 3. That doesn't make it less strange. No. She hesitated. You look like him, she said. Vincent's jaw tightened. Which him? Our father. The word landed heavy. I don't, he said evenly. Not the drinking, she clarified. The posture. The way you stand when you're angry. Vincent absorbed that without reacting. That's something I'll work on, he replied. She looked at him for a long moment. Did you know he hit me? She asked abruptly. The question sliced through the air. Yes, Vincent said. Her eyes sharpened. You knew? I suspected. I confirmed hospital records. She swallowed hard. He said it was discipline, she murmured. He said it made me strong. It made you afraid. Her throat tightened. Yes, she whispered. Vincent felt something dark and cold settle beneath his ribs. I should have found you, he said. You were a kid, she replied. I stopped looking. That's different. He didn't argue. They stood there in silence, the weight of the truth pressing in from all sides. Is he still in Worcester? She asked suddenly. Yes. Her eyes flickered. Has he asked about me? No. That figures. She looked down at her hands. He used to tell me you didn't care. She said. Said your mother poisoned you against him. Said you were soft. Vincent's voice dropped lower. I wasn't soft. No, she said quietly. You don't look it. They locked eyes again. If he finds out about this, she continued. He'll come. He won't, Vincent said firmly. You can't guarantee that. I can. She shook her head. You don't understand. He's not scared of men like you. Vincent's expression shifted slightly. Men like me? He asked. Powerful, controlling, dangerous. And what do you think I am? She held his gaze. I think you don't scare easily, she said. But he's not rational. Vincent stepped a little closer, lowering his voice. Neither am I when it comes to family. That made her inhale sharply. Don't say that, she warned. Why? Because that's how it starts, she said. Men deciding what they'll do for family. That's what he said every time he hit something. I'm doing this because I love you. Vincent went very still. I will never raise a hand to you, he said evenly. Not in anger, not in control, not ever. She searched his face, looking for cracks. I don't want violence, she said. You won't get it from me. And if he comes at you? Vincent held her gaze. I will not become him, he said slowly. That's the only promise I can make. Something in her shoulders loosened. You don't get to fix my past, she said. But maybe we can decide what happens next. Yes, not your mansion, she added quickly. Not your guards. Agreed. Normal, she insisted. If that's possible. Vincent almost smiled. We'll define normal. She studied him. Coffee, she said suddenly. What? Tomorrow. Public place. No suits. I don't wear suits to intimidate. You wear them like armor. He considered that. Tomorrow. He agreed. She nodded once. As he turned to leave, she spoke again. Vincent? He paused. Don't hurt him, she said quietly. Vincent understood exactly who she meant. I won't, he replied. But as he walked back to his car, he knew something she didn't. Daniel Carter had hurt her for 18 years. And men like that did not stop simply because blood had been confirmed. The diner sat on the corner of a busy Cambridge street, the kind of place that had been there since the 70s and never felt the need to update its decor. Red vinyl booths, black and white checkered floor, a counter lined with chrome stools. The smell of coffee and bacon clung to the air like memory. Vincent arrived 5 minutes early. He wore dark jeans, a plain charcoal sweater, and no watch. No tie. No visible symbols of power. Still, he drew looks when he stepped inside. Some men carried presence like a scent. It didn't disappear with clothing. Nina was already there. She sat in a booth near the window. a chipped white mug in front of her. Her hair was loose over her shoulders. She wore a navy cardigan and no makeup. She looked younger today. Less guarded, but not unguarded. He slid into the seat across from her. "You're on time," she said. "I don't like being late." She gave a small nod, as if that confirmed something about him. A waitress in her late 50s approached with a pot of coffee. "Refill, honey?" "Yes, ma'am," Vincent said. The woman raised an eyebrow at the politeness but poured anyway. Nina watched him carefully. "You call all women ma'am?" she asked. "If they've earned it." She almost smiled. They sat in silence for a moment, the normalcy of the place pressing gently against the weight of their situation. "So," Nina began, wrapping her hands around her mug. "You grew up in Boston?" "Yes. South End first, then South Boston. With your mother?" "Yes." "What was she like?" The question caught him slightly off guard. "Strong," he said after a moment. "Quiet. She cooked too much food. Believe Sunday dinner fixed everything." Nina looked down at her coffee. "I don't remember her," she admitted. "She had blue eyes," Vincent said. "Like yours." Nina swallowed. "He told me she left," she said. "Said she didn't want me." Vincent's jaw tightened. "She fought for you," he replied. "In court. I remember." Nina's fingers tightened around the mug. "He said she was unstable." "She wasn't. She lost custody." "Yes." Silence settled between them again, heavier this time. Nina looked out the window at passing cars. "I used to imagine," she said quietly, "that somewhere there was another version of my life. One where I wasn't scared all the time." Vincent listened without interrupting. "I thought maybe," she continued, "if I behaved better, he wouldn't get angry. If I cleaned faster. If I stayed quieter. That's how control works," Vincent said. "It convinces you the pain is your fault." She looked back at him sharply. "You sound like you've thought about this." "I have." She studied him for a long moment. "Did he hit you?" she asked. "No." "Why not?" Vincent's expression hardened slightly. "I was older when they divorced, big enough to fight back." Nina absorbed that. "So he chose the smaller one," she murmured. "Yes." The waitress returned with a plate of scrambled eggs and toast for Nina, a black coffee for Vincent. He hadn't ordered. "I didn't ask for," he began. "You look like you forget to eat," the waitress said matter-of-factly, setting the plate down in front of him. "On the house." Nina watched him carefully. He hesitated, then picked up the fork. "I don't usually accept charity," he said quietly. "It's not charity," Nina replied. "It's kindness. There's a difference." He held her gaze for a second longer than necessary. "Understood." They ate in silence for a few minutes. "You built something big," Nina said eventually. "I looked you up. I assumed you would. You didn't mention certain aspects." Vincent met her eyes. "You mean the rumors?" "I mean the stories." He didn't deny them. "Some of them are exaggerated," he said calmly. "Are they?" "Yes." "All of them?" "No." She leaned back slightly. "So you're dangerous." "I'm careful." "That's not the same thing." "No," he agreed. She took another sip of coffee. "I don't want to be part of that world." "You won't be." "You can't promise that." "I can." She raised an eyebrow. "You say that a lot." "I don't make promises I can't keep." She considered him carefully. "Last night," she said slowly, "when that man grabbed me, you didn't hesitate." "No. Most people did." "Yes." "Why?" Vincent didn't look away. "Because silence is how men like him win." The words hung between them. Nina nodded slowly. "He used to say no one would believe me," she said quietly. "That he was respected. That I was just a kid." Vincent felt the familiar cold edge returning. "I would have believed you," he said. "You didn't know me. I didn't need to." She studied him carefully. "You really believe that, don't you?" "Yes." She let out a slow breath. "My whole life," she said. "I've been told to endure, to keep my head down, to not cause trouble." "And did that make you safe?" Vincent asked. "No." He nodded once. "Endurance isn't safety," he said. "It's survival." She looked at him differently after that. "Are you always this intense?" she asked. "Yes." She laughed softly for the first time. "That's going to take getting used to." He allowed the faintest hint of a smile. "Likewise." Her expression sobered. "If he comes," she said again, quieter now. "I don't want blood." "There won't be." "You say that like you control everything." "I don't," he said evenly. "But I control myself." She held his gaze, testing that statement. "Okay," she said finally. Outside, a police cruiser rolled slowly past the diner window. Neither of them noticed the older man standing across the street near a bus stop, watching through the glass. He wore a worn leather jacket and held a crumpled cigarette between yellowed fingers. His eyes were fixed on Nina, and when Vincent leaned forward slightly in the booth, the man's gaze sharpened. Recognition, possibility, opportunity. Inside the diner, Nina reached for another piece of toast. "So," she said, "tell me something normal about you." Vincent considered that carefully. "I hate mushrooms," he said. She blinked. "That's what you came up with?" "Yes." She shook her head, smiling faintly. "You're going to have to try harder than that." Vincent didn't see the man outside lift his phone and take a picture through the window. But the war Nina feared had just shifted closer. Daniel Carter hadn't expected to see his daughter sitting across from a man like that. He had been heading to the bus stop, pockets nearly empty, when he noticed the black SUV parked illegally along the curb. Vehicles like that didn't belong in neighborhoods like this, unless someone important or dangerous was inside. Then he saw Nina through the diner window, and the man sitting with her. Daniel stepped back into the shadow of a utility pole and narrowed his eyes. The man wasn't smiling much. He leaned forward when he spoke, controlled, focused, the kind of man who didn't waste words. Daniel knew that type, power disguised as calm. He lifted his phone and snapped a picture. The name came to him a minute later, like an old memory surfacing from whiskey and regret. Moretti. Vincent Moretti. Daniel had heard it years ago when he'd still paid attention to the news. Shipping contracts, ports, quiet rumors. Daniel's mouth twitched. "Well, look at you," he muttered under his breath. "Didn't stay small, did you?" Inside the diner, Nina laughed at something Vincent said about his inability to cook anything that didn't involve boiling water. The sound caught Daniel off guard. He hadn't heard her laugh like that in years. She looked different, straighter, less braced for impact. Daniel's eyes hardened. He didn't like not knowing things. He stepped away from the window and walked down the block, dialing a number he hadn't used in months. "Tommy," he said, when the line picked up. "You still got that contact at the courthouse?" "Depends," Tommy replied cautiously. "Why?" "I need information on someone." "Vincent Moretti." There was a pause. "Are you insane?" "I need information," Daniel repeated. "You don't poke at people like that, Dan." Daniel's jaw clenched. "Just tell me what you know." "Legit shipping company," Tommy said reluctantly. "But that's the clean side. The other side? Ports don't move that much freight without grease." Daniel smirked. "That's what I thought." "Why?" Daniel glanced back toward the diner. "Because my daughter is having breakfast with him." Silence. "You're joking." "No. You stay out of that," Tommy warned. "Men like him don't argue. They erase." Daniel hung up. He stared at the photo on his phone. Nina looked comfortable. Too comfortable. He slid the phone into his pocket and began walking toward her apartment building instead. Inside the diner, Vincent's posture shifted almost imperceptibly. "What?" Nina asked. He didn't look at her right away. "I don't like that someone's watching," he said quietly. She stiffened. "What do you mean?" Across the street, utility pole, brown jacket. She resisted the instinct to turn immediately. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking." Her fingers tightened around her mug. "Is he still there?" "No." Her stomach dropped. "Do you think it was?" "Yes." She exhaled slowly. "I told you," she said. "He finds out." Vincent reached for his coffee but didn't drink it. "Finish your breakfast," he said calmly. "You think I'm hungry?" "Yes." She stared at him, incredulous. "Why?" "Because fear doesn't get to control routine," he said evenly. "You eat. You go to work. You live." She swallowed. "You talk like this is strategy." "It is." She looked toward the window despite herself. "Do you have people watching him?" she asked. Yes." "Since when?" "Since the lab test." She stared at him. "You didn't tell me. You didn't ask." "That's not how transparency works." Vincent inclined his head slightly. "You're right." Her anger flickered but didn't ignite fully. "I don't want to be surrounded by guards," she said. "You're not. But you're already moving pieces." "Yes. That's what scares me." He leaned forward slightly. "Nina," he said quietly. "I will not let him hurt you again." "I survived him," she shot back. "You endured him," Vincent corrected. "That's different." Her throat tightened. "I don't want you destroying him," she said. "He's still my father." Vincent held her gaze. "And you're still my sister." Silence. That word again. Sister. She looked down at her hands. "What happens now?" she whispered. Vincent glanced once more toward the street. Now, he said evenly. We adjust. Adjust how? I increase distance. That's vague. I don't escalate, he clarified. I observe. She studied him carefully. You're not going to confront him? No. Why not? Because men like him thrive on confrontation. They need it. And you don't? Vincent's expression remained steady. I outgrew that. She wasn't entirely convinced. Outside, Daniel had reached her apartment building. He leaned casually against the brick near the entrance, lighting a cigarette. He didn't knock. He waited. Inside the diner, Nina's phone buzzed. She froze. Unknown number. Her heart began to pound. Vincent watched her face change. Answer it, he said calmly. She hesitated, then pressed accept and lifted it to her ear. Hello? Daniel's voice came through rough and familiar. Baby girl. Her spine went rigid. What do you want? She asked, her voice suddenly flat. I saw you this morning, he said lightly. Big car. Big man. Vincent didn't move, but something inside him sharpened. You don't get to call me that, Nina said. Daniel laughed softly. Still sensitive. What do you want? Just making sure you're keeping good company, he replied. Men like that don't sit with girls like you for nothing. Vincent's jaw tightened. You don't know anything about him, Nina said. I know enough, Daniel replied. You think he's rescuing you? That's not what this is. Then what is it? Daniel asked. Nina glanced at Vincent. Vincent gave the smallest nod. None of your business, she said firmly. Daniel was quiet for a moment. I'm outside your place, he said casually. We should talk. The blood drained from her face. Vincent's voice was calm, controlled. Tell him you're not home. She swallowed. I'm not home, she said into the phone. Daniel chuckled. Don't lie to me. I can see your car. Vincent stood. Put it on, speaker, he said softly. She hesitated, then did. Daniel's voice filled the small booth. You bring that fancy friend over, he said. I'd love to meet him. Vincent leaned slightly toward the phone. You won't, he said evenly. There was a pause on the other end. And who's this? Daniel asked. Vincent's voice did not rise. My name is Vincent Moretti. Silence. Then Daniel laughed. Well, I'll be damned. Daniel Carter did not hang up. There was a long pause on the line, the kind that carried history inside it. Well, Daniel said finally, his voice losing some of its mockery. This just got interesting. Nina's hand trembled slightly where she held the phone on the table. You don't get to show up at my apartment, she said. You don't get to call me. You don't get to pretend this is normal. Daniel ignored her. Vincent Moretti, he repeated slowly. I remember that name. Vincent's tone remained even. I'm sure you do. Didn't expect you to grow up so successful. I didn't expect you to grow old, Vincent replied calmly, and still be the same man. The words were not loud. They didn't need to be. Nina closed her eyes briefly. Stop, she whispered. Both of you. Daniel's voice hardened. You think you can intimidate me, son? I don't think, Vincent said quietly. I know. Silence again. Then Daniel chuckled, but there was no humor in it. You always were your mother's favorite, he muttered. The words landed like a slap. Nina's eyes flew open. What? She whispered. Vincent didn't react outwardly, but something cold moved behind his eyes. You don't get to rewrite the past, Vincent said. I don't have to, Daniel replied. You lived it. Nina's breathing grew shallow. You said she left. She said into the phone, her voice shaking. You said she didn't want us. She left, Daniel snapped. That's what matters. That's not what I asked. Vincent leaned slightly closer to the phone. Get away from her building, he said calmly. Daniel laughed again. You threatening me? I'm instructing you. You don't instruct me. There was a beat. Vincent's voice dropped half a degree lower. You're standing on property I own. Silence. Nina blinked. What? The building, Vincent clarified, still watching the table rather than the phone. LLC under Whitestone Holdings. You've been renting for 2 years. Nina stared at him. You never said. It wasn't relevant. On the other end of the line, Daniel's tone shifted. You own the building? Yes. Well, Daniel said slowly, that complicates things. No, Vincent replied. It simplifies them. Leave. There was a long pause. You think you can protect her? Daniel asked. Yes. She's not a little girl. I know. You don't know what she's capable of. I know what you're capable of. Silence. The tension pressed against Nina's ribs. Finally, Daniel exhaled sharply. I'll go, he said. For now. For good, Vincent corrected. Daniel ignored that. You and I aren't finished, he said. Vincent's reply was immediate. We are. The line went dead. Nina stared at the silent phone. Her hands were cold. He was outside, she whispered. Yes. He knew. Yes. She looked up at Vincent, anger and fear colliding behind her eyes. You own my building? Yes. Since when? Since before you moved in. She stood abruptly, the booth creaking under the motion. So I've been living in your property this whole time and you didn't tell me? You weren't living there because of me, he said calmly. You qualified on your own. I didn't interfere. That's not the point. What is the point? The point, she said, her voice rising, is that I don't want my life arranged without my consent. Vincent absorbed that without defensiveness. You're right, he said after a moment. The simplicity of the admission caught her off guard. I didn't buy it for you, he continued. It was a business acquisition. I learned you were a tenant afterward, and then you just watched? I ensured the property was maintained properly. That's not the same thing. No, he agreed. She exhaled shakily and sat back down. I can't breathe when everything feels controlled, she said quietly. I grew up like that. Vincent's expression softened, not weaker, just less rigid. I don't want to control you, he said, but you do control everything around you. Yes. Why? Because when I was younger, he said slowly. I couldn't. The words hung between them. She studied him carefully. You think power fixes helplessness? No, he replied. It prevents it. That's not the same thing either. He didn't argue. Outside, the street had returned to normal. Cars passed. A woman walked her dog. The world continued. I don't want war, Nina said. There isn't one. He wants one. Let him want, Vincent replied. Wanting and winning are different. She gave a weak half-smile. You always talk like you're 10 steps ahead. I try to be. And what if he does something stupid? Vincent's eyes hardened slightly. Then I respond proportionally. That sounds terrifying. It should. She searched his face. You'd really hurt him. Vincent paused. I would stop him. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. She looked down at the table, thinking. I don't want to hate him, she said quietly. Even after everything. You don't have to, Vincent replied. But you don't owe him access. The simplicity of that struck her. Access. Not love. Not forgiveness. Access. Her shoulders lowered slightly. I've never thought about it like that. That's because he never gave you the option. She nodded slowly. After a moment, she looked up again. Are we going to pretend you didn't just tell him you own my building? No. Good. She took a breath. I need honesty, she said. All of it. Even the parts I won't like. Vincent met her eyes directly. You'll get it. Starting now. Starting now. She hesitated, then asked the question she'd been circling since the night of the gala. How deep does your world go? Vincent didn't flinch. Deep enough, he said calmly. That people don't grab women in rooms I stand in. She held his gaze for a long moment. I don't want to be protected because I'm weak. You're not weak. Then why? He leaned forward slightly. Because you're family. The words settled differently this time. Less shock, more weight. Outside, down the block, Daniel Carter sat in his rusted sedan and stared at his phone. He looked at the picture again. Vincent Moretti, his son, powerful, controlled, respected. Daniel's jaw clenched. He didn't like losing control, and men who didn't like losing control often made very bad decisions. Daniel Carter did not drive away immediately. He sat behind the wheel of his aging sedan, engine idling, cigarette burning down between his fingers. The photo on his phone glowed faintly in the dim interior light. Nina across from Vincent Moretti, leaning forward slightly, listening. Daniel crushed the cigarette into the ashtray. He didn't like that. Inside the diner, Nina stared at the condensation ring left by her coffee cup. I should go back to work, she said finally. I've already pushed my shift. Vincent nodded. I'll walk you to your car. That's not necessary. It's not optional. She rolled her eyes faintly. But she didn't argue. They stepped outside together. The late morning air carried the sharp chill of early spring. Traffic hummed. The world looked ordinary, but Nina felt anything but. Vincent scanned the street once, casually, as if admiring architecture. He's gone, he said. For now, she replied. They reached her car. She unlocked it but didn't get in. You told him we were finished, she said quietly. Yes. You believe that? Yes. She studied him. I don't. Vincent didn't pretend otherwise. He won't stop because you ask him to, she said. He'll stop when he gets something. Vincent's expression sharpened slightly. He won't get it. That depends what he wants. A black SUV rolled slowly past the intersection, then continued on. Vincent's men. Always there. Never obvious. I don't want to be watched, Nina said softly. You're not. Vincent replied. You're monitored. She gave him a look. That's not better. He inclined his head slightly. I'll reduce the distance. You'll tell them to stand down. I'll tell them to stay unseen. She head. This is exactly what I meant. And this, he replied calmly, is exactly why I do it. She hesitated. Because you don't trust him. No, Vincent said. Because I don't trust desperation. She opened her mouth to respond, but her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Her stomach tightened. She let it ring. Vincent's eyes shifted slightly. Answer it, he said quietly. She shook her head. No, it stopped, then buzzed again immediately. She exhaled sharply and answered. What? Daniel's voice came through, smoother now. You always did have a temper. Stop calling me. You didn't let me finish earlier. There's nothing to finish. Sure there is, he said lightly. You think he told you everything? Nina's jaw tightened. He told me enough. Did he tell you why your mother lost custody? Her throat went dry. Because you said she was unstable. Daniel laughed softly. That's what I said. And that's what happened. No. Daniel replied calmly. That's what I let you believe. Vincent's posture shifted subtly. What are you talking about? Nina demanded. I'm saying, Daniel continued. Your brother wasn't the only one who learned to play power games. Vincent's eyes went cold. You're lying, Nina said. Am I? Daniel countered. Ask him what happened the week before the final hearing. Nina's hand trembled slightly. Vincent extended his hand slowly. Speaker, he said. She hesitated, then complied. Daniel's voice filled the space between them. Go ahead, Daniel said. Tell her. Vincent didn't rush. What are you trying to accomplish? He asked evenly. I'm leveling the field. Daniel replied. She deserves to know who she's trusting. Nina's eyes moved between the phone and Vincent's face. Tell me what? She whispered. Vincent held her gaze. The week before the final custody hearing, he said calmly. Our mother missed a court-mandated evaluation. Daniel snorted. Missed? That's one way to put it. Nina's heart pounded. Why did she miss it? She asked. Vincent's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Because she was in the hospital. For what? Nina demanded. Daniel cut in. For a broken wrist and 3 cracked ribs, he said. But the paperwork said she fell down the stairs. The world tilted slightly. Nina stared at the phone. You said. I said what I had to. Daniel replied. The court doesn't like unstable women. It likes stable fathers. Vincent's voice dropped lower. You're confessing. I'm clarifying. Nina's chest tightened painfully. You heard her, she said. Daniel exhaled slowly. I disciplined my household. Vincent's hand closed into a fist. Enough, he said. Daniel ignored him. You think your brother built all that by being soft? Daniel continued. You think men like him don't understand what strength looks like? Vincent's voice turned to ice. Say one more word about her. Daniel chuckled. You're still emotional, he said. That's your weakness. The line went dead. Nina stood frozen. Her breathing was uneven. She began, but the word dissolved. Vincent stepped closer but didn't touch her. He's trying to destabilize you, he said calmly. He broke her wrist, Nina whispered. Yes, and the court gave him custody. Yes, because she missed the evaluation. Yes, her eyes filled. You knew. I was 14, Vincent said. I couldn't prove it. You didn't tell me. You were 5. That's not the point. He absorbed the anger without reacting. You don't get to protect me from truth, she said, her voice shaking now. Not anymore. I'm not protecting you from truth, he said evenly. I'm protecting you from manipulation. She shook her head, tears sliding down her cheeks. He's right about one thing. Vincent didn't respond. I don't know everything about you. Silence. And that scares me, she said. Vincent looked at her carefully. What do you want to know? She hesitated. Did you ever hurt anyone the way he hurt her? The question hung heavy in the air. Vincent didn't flinch. No. Ever. No. Have you ordered someone to? He held her gaze. I have ordered men removed from positions of power, he said calmly. I have ended threats. That's not what I asked. His jaw tightened slightly. I do not harm women, he said evenly. I do not harm children. And I do not break bones to win arguments. Her breathing steadied slightly. That's specific. It's deliberate. She studied him carefully. I need to believe that, she said quietly. Then believe it. The simplicity unsettled her again. In the distance, a siren wailed faintly. Vincent glanced once toward the street. Daniel was escalating. Not physically, psychologically, and that kind of war left scars. Nina wiped her face roughly. He wants you angry, she said. Yes. He wants you to make a mistake. Yes. Will you? Vincent's expression didn't change. No. But across town, Daniel Carter was dialing another number. This time not for information, this time for leverage. Daniel Carter sat in his car outside a rundown auto shop on the edge of Dorchester. Engine off now. Window cracked just enough to let cigarette smoke drift out. The shop sign flickered even in daylight. Rusted trucks lined the lot like forgotten bones. He checked the time on his phone. Then he dialed. The man who answered didn't bother with greetings. Yeah, I need a favor, Daniel said. A pause. You still owe me from the last one? I know. Then this better be worth it. Daniel stared at the cracked windshield in front of him. It is. Across town, Nina sat in her small apartment, legs pulled up beneath her on the couch. The sunlight filtering through the blinds felt too bright for how heavy the room felt. Vincent stood by the window, phone in hand, speaking quietly. Yes, he said. Keep distance. No engagement. A pause. No, he's baiting. He ended the call and turned toward her. You have security outside, he said calmly. 2 blocks out. Rotating. She closed her eyes. I didn't agree to that. You didn't have to. That's exactly what I mean, she said, opening her eyes. You just decide. I assess risk. I'm not a risk. You're a target. The word landed hard. She looked away. I don't want to live like that, she said quietly. You won't, but I already am. He walked closer but kept a respectful distance. This isn't permanent, he said. It's precaution. Because he called a few times? Because he's losing control. She laughed once, bitterly. You make it sound like a chess match. It is. I'm not a piece. His expression shifted slightly. You're not, he said firmly. You're the reason I don't flip the board. She held his gaze. Don't. I won't. Silence settled between them. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was her manager. Can you cover tonight? Lisa called out. She stared at the screen. I need normal, she whispered. Then take it. Vincent replied. She answered. Yes. I'll be there. 2 hours later, Nina stepped into the restaurant where she worked an upscale Italian place in Back Bay, with soft lighting and framed black and white photos of old Boston lining the walls. The hostess gave her a sympathetic look. You okay? She asked quietly. I'm fine. You don't look fine. Nina forced a smile. I'm fine. In the corner booth near the bar, 2 men sat nursing drinks. They weren't dressed like regular patrons. Too still, too observant. Vincent's men. She recognized one of them from a distance. He didn't look at her. He didn't have to. She tied her apron tighter around her waist and stepped onto the floor. Normal. She could do normal. Across town, Daniel leaned against the auto shop's garage door as a heavy-set man with a shaved head approached. You look like hell, the man said. Age does that. You said it was worth it. Daniel handed him his phone. The man looked at the photo of Nina and Vincent. Who's the suit? Vincent Moretti. The man's expression changed. That's not small. I don't need small. What do you need? Daniel's jaw tightened. I need him uncomfortable. The man handed the phone back. You don't poke bears like that. I'm not poking him, Daniel said. I'm nudging. And if he nudges back? Daniel's eyes hardened. He won't. You sound real sure. Daniel lit another cigarette. He's got something to lose. The man studied him carefully. Yeah? Daniel exhaled smoke slowly. My daughter. Back at the restaurant, Nina carried a tray of wine glasses toward table 12. She felt eyes on her, not just the usual customer glance. Something else. When she set the glasses down, a voice from behind her said quietly, You, Nina? She turned. A man in his mid-30s stood there, jacket zipped high despite the warm interior. I work here, she said cautiously. Can I help you? He smiled without warmth. Just wanted to say hi. Her stomach tightened. I'm working. Didn't mean to interrupt. He stepped closer than necessary. You know a guy named Moretti. Her spine stiffened. That's not your business. He leaned in slightly. Everything's somebody's business. A chair scraped behind her. One of Vincent's men stood. The air shifted. The stranger glanced toward him, measured the situation. Then he smiled again. "Tell him, Daniel says hello." He turned and walked out. Nina's hands were shaking when she returned to the kitchen. Her manager noticed immediately. "What happened?" "Nothing," she said too quickly. "Don't lie." She swallowed. "I just need a minute." In the dining room, Vincent's man stepped outside, speaking quietly into his sleeve. "He made contact," he said. Verbal only. A pause. "Understood." Upstairs in his office overlooking the harbor, Vincent listened without interrupting. "Don't engage," he said finally. "Track him." He ended the call. His expression didn't change, but something inside him hardened. Daniel had moved from words to proximity. That was escalation, and escalation had consequences. Back at the restaurant, Nina leaned against the stainless steel counter in the kitchen, breathing slowly. She pulled out her phone and texted Vincent. "He sent someone to my job." The response came almost immediately. "Are you safe?" "Yes." "Did he touch you?" "No." "I'm coming." She stared at the screen. "Don't." He didn't respond. 5 minutes later, the restaurant door opened. Vincent walked in. The entire room shifted. He wasn't loud. He wasn't dramatic, but presence has weight. He scanned once, saw her, walked straight to her. "You said you wouldn't escalate," she said quietly. "I didn't," he replied. "You showing up like this." "I'm not here for him," Vincent said. "I'm here for you." Her chest tightened. "You can't fight him for me." "I'm not." "Then what are you doing?" His voice was steady, drawing a boundary. Across the street, Daniel watched from inside a parked van he'd borrowed. He saw Vincent enter the restaurant, saw the way people looked at him, saw Nina walk toward him instead of away. Daniel's jaw clenched. He didn't like losing. He didn't like being replaced, and he especially didn't like being outplayed. Inside the restaurant, Vincent turned to Nina. "This ends tonight," he said quietly. Her eyes widened. "What does that mean?" "It means he doesn't get to test the perimeter anymore." Outside, Daniel's phone buzzed. A message from the man at the auto shop. "You sure about this?" Daniel stared at the restaurant window, at the silhouette of his son, at the daughter who wasn't afraid enough. He typed back one word. "Yes." Vincent did not raise his voice. He didn't have to. Standing near the hostess podium of the restaurant, hands relaxed at his sides, he looked less like a man about to make a decision, and more like a man who already had. Nina stepped closer to him, lowering her voice. "What are you planning?" "Nothing reckless," he said calmly. "That's not specific." "It doesn't need to be." Her jaw tightened. "You don't get to decide how this ends without me." Vincent held her gaze. "I'm not deciding for you," he said evenly. "I'm deciding for him." "That's worse." Before he could answer, the restaurant manager approached, nervous but polite. "Is there a problem?" Vincent offered a measured nod. "No problem," he said. "Just ensuring there won't be one." The manager glanced toward the window, then back at Nina. "If you need to clock out, I'm finishing my shift," Nina said firmly. Vincent studied her for a second. "You don't have to." "I know." There was steel in her voice now. Vincent gave a single nod. "Then I'll be outside." He turned and walked out. The dining room slowly exhaled. In the kitchen, Nina steadied herself against the prep table. Lisa, one of the other servers, leaned in close. "That guy who asked about you?" Lisa whispered. "Creepy." Nina forced a small smile. "Yeah. You want someone to walk you to your car later? I won't be alone." Lisa glanced toward the window where Vincent's dark silhouette could be seen across the street. "Yeah," she muttered. "I noticed." Outside, Vincent stood near the curb, phone pressed to his ear. "Bring him to me," he said quietly. A pause. "Not here." Another pause. "No police." He ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket. Across town, Daniel Carter sat at the same auto shop, staring at his phone when it buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. "Yeah?" A calm male voice replied. "Mr. Carter? Who's asking?" "You're being invited to a conversation." Daniel snorted. "I don't do invitations. This one isn't optional." Silence. Daniel's fingers tightened around the phone. "You think I'm scared?" "No," the voice said. "We think you're impulsive." Daniel laughed once. "Where?" An address was given. A warehouse near the docks. Neutral ground. Daniel ended the call slowly. The heavy-set man from earlier watched him. "You going?" Daniel stood. "I raised him," he said bitterly. "He doesn't get to summon me," but he grabbed his jacket anyway. Back at the restaurant, Nina finished her shift without incident. No more strange faces, No more whispers. When she stepped outside, Vincent was waiting. He opened the passenger door of his car. "I drove," she said. "You're not driving tonight." She hesitated, then handed him her keys. They drove in silence for several minutes. Streetlights streaked across the windshield. "Where are we going?" she asked finally. "Somewhere safe." "That's not an address. It doesn't need to be." Her stomach tightened. "Did you set something up?" "Yes." "With him?" "Yes." She inhaled sharply. "You promised no escalation." "I promised no chaos," he corrected. "That's not the same thing." "No," he agreed. They pulled into an industrial area near the harbor. Old brick buildings, dark windows, the scent of salt and metal in the air. Vincent parked outside a warehouse with dim lights glowing inside. "You're not serious," she said quietly. "I am. I'm not going in there." "You're not," he said. "You'll stay in the car." "That's worse." He turned to face her fully. "Nina," he said calmly. "He wants leverage. He thinks proximity equals power. Tonight, he learns it doesn't." "You can't teach him," she said. "He doesn't learn. He does when pain is involved." Her eyes widened. "You said no violence." "I said no chaos." Her voice shook. "Don't become him." Vincent's expression shifted just slightly. "I won't." Before she could respond, headlights appeared at the far end of the lot. An old sedan. Daniel stepped out slowly. He looked smaller than Vincent remembered. Older, but his eyes were the same. Defiant. Vincent stepped out of the car. The two men stood facing each other under the harsh glow of a single overhead light. Daniel smirked. "You always liked dramatic entrances. You always liked intimidation," Vincent replied. Daniel's gaze flicked toward the car. "She inside? That's not your concern." Daniel scoffed. "She's my daughter. She's my sister." Silence. Daniel stepped closer. "You think blood changes anything?" "Yes. You didn't come looking for her for 25 years. I was building something stable enough to stand on." Daniel laughed. "You were building power." "Yes." "For this?" Daniel gestured toward the car. "For a girl who waited tables?" Vincent's voice turned to ice. "You don't diminish her." Daniel's jaw tightened. "She called me scared," he lied. Vincent didn't blink. "She didn't. She doesn't need you fighting her battles. She doesn't need you creating them." The air between them crackled. Daniel leaned in slightly. "You think you're better than me?" "I know I am." Daniel's hand twitched. Vincent noticed. So did the men standing unseen in the shadows near the warehouse entrance. Daniel glanced around. "Ah," he muttered. "Back up." "Insurance," Vincent corrected. Daniel exhaled sharply. "What do you want?" Vincent's tone remained even. "You don't contact her again. You can't control that." "I can." "You'll threaten me?" "No," Vincent said calmly. "I'll remove your access." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "You think money scares me?" "No." "Then what?" Vincent stepped closer. His voice lowered. "You like leverage," he said. "So let's talk leverage." Daniel held his ground. "You have outstanding warrants in 2 states," Vincent continued quietly. "Unpaid taxes. Outstanding debts. I can have federal auditors in your life by morning." Daniel's smirk faltered slightly. "You wouldn't." "I would." "You'd destroy your own father?" Vincent's expression didn't change. "You destroyed your wife," he said. "You destroyed your children's childhood. Don't talk to me about blood." Daniel's breathing grew heavier. "You think she'll thank you for this?" He spat. "She doesn't need to." Silence. Wind moved across the empty lot. Daniel glanced toward the car again. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Regret. Then it vanished. "You always were soft for women," he muttered. Vincent's jaw tightened. "And you always mistook cruelty for strength." They stood there, years of history suspended between them. Finally, Daniel exhaled. "You really going to bring the government down on me?" "If you force my hand." Daniel studied him carefully, measured the distance, measured the odds. For the first time that night, he seemed to understand something. Vincent wasn't reacting. He was concluding. Daniel took a step back. "You're not done paying for this," he said. Vincent's reply was immediate. "Neither are you." Daniel turned, walked to his car, and drove off. Vincent remained standing until the taillights disappeared. Only then did he return to the car. Nina's face was pale. "What happened?" she asked. "It's handled," he said. "That's not an answer. He won't contact you again." "How can you be sure?" Vincent looked at her. "Because he values survival." She searched his face. "What did you threaten?" "Accountability." She closed her eyes briefly. "You're walking a thin line." "I know." She opened her eyes again. I don't want him destroyed, she said quietly. He won't be, Vincent replied. Unless he insists. Silence filled the car as they drove away from the docks. In the rearview mirror, the warehouse lights dimmed, but Daniel Carter wasn't driving home. He was driving somewhere else, and men who feel cornered rarely retreat quietly. Daniel didn't go home. He drove past the familiar exits, past the streets that held too many memories, and headed toward Quincy Point, where the old marina bars stayed open late and questions were rarely asked. He parked near a faded sign that read Harbor Lights Tavern, and sat in the car for a full minute before stepping out. Inside, the air smelled of stale beer and salt water. A Red Sox game played muted on a television above the bar. Men in their 50s and 60s hunched over drinks, talking about pensions, grandkids, and how the city wasn't what it used to be. Daniel ordered whiskey. Neat. He stared at the amber liquid and replayed the dockside meeting in his mind. Vincent's eyes, not angry, not reckless, final. That unsettled him more than shouting would have. A man slid onto the stool beside him. Tommy, you look like you swallowed a nail, Tommy muttered. Daniel didn't look at him. He thinks he's better than me. Tommy exhaled slowly. Maybe he is. Daniel's jaw tightened. I raised him. You raised him in a house full of shouting and broken furniture. Daniel's hand froze around the glass. Tommy didn't soften it. We were all there, Dan. You forget that. Daniel took a long drink. He's threatening audits, Daniel said. Tommy whistled quietly. That's not small. He wouldn't. You sure about that? Daniel didn't answer. Across town, Vincent drove Nina back to her apartment. The city lights reflected off the windshield in blurred streaks of gold. She sat quietly, hands folded in her lap. You didn't tell me what you said, she finally said. I told him to stop. That's vague. It was intentional. She turned slightly toward him. Did you threaten him? I informed him of consequences. That's a yes. He didn't deny it. She sighed. I hate that this is what it takes. So do I. You don't look like you hate it. Vincent glanced at her briefly. Hate doesn't show on my face, he said calmly. It shows in my restraint. That made her pause. They pulled up in front of her building. No loitering figures. No unfamiliar cars. Just the quiet hum of a Boston night. Vincent stepped out first, scanning automatically. Old habits. He opened her door. I can walk myself, she said. I know. She stepped onto the sidewalk and looked up at her building. It doesn't feel like mine anymore, she admitted. It is. You own it. I own paper, he corrected. You own your life. She studied him. Why are you like this? Like what? Always controlled. He considered that carefully. When you grow up in chaos, he said, you either become it or you master it, and you chose mastery. Yes. They stood there under the streetlight. Did you ever think about coming back for me? She asked quietly. He didn't deflect. Yes. When? Every year. Then why didn't you? His jaw tightened slightly. Because I wasn't strong enough. She blinked. You? At 18, I had anger, he said. Not power. Anger doesn't win custody battles. Her throat tightened. So you built power first. Yes. For me? For survival, he corrected. You were part of that. She looked down at the sidewalk. I don't know how to feel about that. You don't have to decide tonight. She nodded slowly. Inside her apartment, she leaned against the door after locking it. He waited outside until she texted him. Inside. Only then did he leave. Upstairs in his office overlooking the harbor, Vincent stood at the window. The city was quieter now. He poured himself a small glass of water, never whiskey when decisions were pending. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Yes. Daniel's voice came through. Calmer now. You think you won tonight? I didn't think, Vincent replied. I concluded. Daniel exhaled slowly. You're going to bring federal heat on me? If you approach her again, you're really willing to ruin me. Vincent's tone remained steady. I'm willing to stop you. Daniel was quiet for a moment. She's all I've got left, he said, and for the first time there was no sarcasm in it. Vincent didn't soften. You had her, he said. You misused her. Silence stretched. I didn't mean for it to go that far, Daniel muttered. It always goes that far. Vincent replied quietly. That's the problem. Daniel's breathing was heavier now. I'm not some monster. Vincent looked out at the harbor lights. You broke our mother's wrist. I was angry. You were in control. Another long pause. You think she'd be proud of you? Daniel asked bitterly. Vincent didn't hesitate. Yes. The word landed clean. Daniel swallowed. You always believed that. Yes. And what if she wouldn't? Vincent's voice didn't waver. Then I'd still choose this. Daniel didn't respond for several seconds. When he did, his voice was smaller. I won't go near her. Vincent didn't answer immediately. I won't call. Daniel continued. I won't show up. You won't send anyone either. Vincent added. A pause. Fine. If you break that, Vincent said calmly. I won't warn you again. Daniel's voice hardened slightly. You really are my son. No, Vincent said. I'm my mother's. He ended the call. In his apartment, Daniel sat alone at his kitchen table. The refrigerator hummed. The house felt too quiet. He stared at the faded family photo still pinned to the wall, a younger version of himself. A tired woman with blue eyes, a teenage boy trying to look tough, and a little girl holding a stuffed rabbit. He reached up and took the photo down. His hand trembled slightly. Across the city, Nina lay awake in bed. Her mind replayed the evening, the warehouse, the distance in Vincent's eyes, the restraint. Her phone buzzed softly. A text from Vincent. He agreed to no contact. She stared at the message. Do you believe him? The response came quickly. I believe he believes it. That wasn't comfort, but it was honest. She typed back. Thank you. There was a pause before his reply. Always. She set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. For the first time in years, she felt something unfamiliar. Not safety, not fear. Space. The kind of space that exists when a door finally closes. But doors, when forced shut, sometimes rattle in their frames before they stay sealed. And somewhere in Quincy, Daniel Carter sat alone in the dark, staring at an old photograph and realizing something he hadn't expected. He had lost, not to power, not to threats, but to a son who refused to become him. The next morning felt strangely quiet. Boston woke under a pale gray sky. The harbor smooth as glass. The city moving through its usual rhythms, commuters gripping, coffee cups, delivery trucks blocking narrow streets, older couples walking small dogs past brick townhouses that had stood for over a century. For the first time in weeks, Nina stepped out of her building without scanning the street. She paused at the sidewalk, testing the feeling. No strange cars, no men pretending not to watch, just the ordinary hum of life. Her phone buzzed. A text from Vincent. Morning. Any contact? She typed back. No. A moment later, I'm taking the day off. The reply came after a brief pause. Good. Meet me at 10. Boston Common. She hesitated. Why? Another pause. Because you deserve something normal. She didn't argue. At 10 sharp, she found him near the Soldiers and Sailors Monument. He wasn't in a suit today. Dark jeans, navy coat, hands in his pockets. He looked less like a man who commanded ports and more like someone who had learned how to blend when necessary. You're early, she said. I prefer it. She glanced around. No entourage. No. No surveillance? A faint shift in his eyes. Reduced. She narrowed her gaze. Vincent. Unseen, he corrected calmly. She exhaled but didn't press further. They began walking slowly through the park. The trees were still bare from winter, but the air hinted at change. Older couples sat on benches feeding pigeons. A man in his 60s read a newspaper folded precisely along its creases. Two teenage boys tossed a baseball back and forth. Normal. It feels strange, Nina said quietly. What does? Silence. Vincent nodded. Silence is underrated. She glanced at him. You're not good at it. I am, he said evenly. I just don't live in it. They walked past the frog pond, now empty of skaters, its surface reflecting the pale sky. Did he call again? She asked. No. You believe he'll stay away? Yes. Because you scared him. Because he calculated. She gave him a small look. You talk like everything is numbers. Everything is consequence, he replied. She studied him for a moment. What happens to him now? Nothing, Vincent said. If he behaves. And if he doesn't? His voice stayed calm. Then he learns that actions compound. She shook her head slightly. You always speak like a contract. Contracts are honest, he said. They tell you what happens if you break them. She stopped walking. And what happens if I break yours? He turned to face her fully. You're not bound by one. That's not true, she said softly. You've built a perimeter around me. That's protection. It feels like territory. His jaw tightened slightly. I don't own you. I know. But you operate like you could. The words weren't accusation. They were observation. Vincent held her gaze. I spent my life controlling damage, he said quietly. It's difficult to turn that off. I'm not damaged, she replied. No, he agreed. You're what I was trying to protect. They resumed walking. Near the edge of the park, an older man dropped his cane. Vincent stepped forward immediately, picking it up and handing it back with a polite nod. Thank you, son, the man said. Yes, sir. They walked on. Nina glanced at him sideways. You're always like that with older people. They've earned it. She smiled faintly. My father never said sir to anyone. I know. The breeze shifted. You don't hate him, she said quietly. Vincent didn't answer right away. Hate requires energy, he said finally. I prefer clarity. And what's the clear version? He was weak. She frowned. He didn't look weak to me growing up. Cruelty often hides weakness, Vincent replied. Strength doesn't need witnesses. She absorbed that. They reached a bench overlooking the State House dome shining in the distance. They sat. You ever think about leaving all of it? She asked. Leaving what? The business, the power, the constant calculation. He considered the question seriously. Yes. When? After our mother died. She looked at him sharply. You never told me that. You never asked. She rolled her eyes slightly. You almost left? Yes. Why didn't you? He looked out over the park. Because walking away doesn't erase what exists. It just hands it to someone worse. She studied him. So you stayed to control it. Yes. Is that noble? No. Is it necessary? Yes. They sat in silence for a moment. A group of middle-aged women power-walked past them, talking loudly about cholesterol and retirement plans. Nina smiled faintly. I want something simple, she said. Define simple. A job I don't hate. A home that feels safe. Maybe someday a family that doesn't feel like a battlefield. Vincent's expression softened slightly. You can have that. She glanced at him. With you? He didn't answer immediately. With or without me, he said carefully. She studied his face. That's the first time you've said that. I'm not trying to own your future, he said evenly. Good. A pause. But I don't want to build it alone. The words hung there. He met her eyes. You won't. She took a slow breath. You ever think about what normal looks like for you? He considered that carefully. Dinner at a tabdexel without tension, he said. No raised voices. No calculating exits. She swallowed. That sounds nice. Yes. They fell quiet again. Across the park, unnoticed, a man stood near a newspaper stand, pretending to check his phone. Not one of Vincent's men. Someone else. Watching. A photograph was taken, from a distance, framed carefully to include both of them. At the edge of the image, the gold dome of the State House gleamed. Later that afternoon, Daniel Carter received a message. Unknown number. An image attached. He opened it. His daughter, his son, sitting together in the park. Peaceful. Daniel's jaw tightened. He typed back one sentence. Where did you get this? The reply came quickly. You're not the only one who wants leverage. Daniel stared at the message. He thought he had been playing against Vincent, but the board was bigger than that. Back in the park, Nina stood. Coffee? She asked. Vincent nodded. They walked toward Beacon Hill. For a moment, the city felt almost gentle, but somewhere beyond their line of sight, someone else had just entered the game. The cafe on Charles Street was the kind of place that smelled like roasted beans and old books. Small, round tables. Soft jazz playing low enough to allow conversation. A chalkboard menu written in careful cursive. The kind of place where older couples lingered over black coffee and talked about grandchildren and blood pressure medication. Vincent held the door open for Nina. Thank you, she said. Of course. They ordered simply Americano for him, oat milk latte for her, and found a table near the window. Outside, Beacon Hill's brick sidewalks glowed faintly under the late morning sun. Inside, normal life continued. Nina wrapped both hands around her cup. I forgot what it feels like, she admitted. What? To sit somewhere without expecting something to happen. Vincent studied her carefully. That's not a small thing. No, she said quietly. It's not. A woman in her 60s at the next table glanced at them, smiled politely, then returned to her newspaper. The front page headline mentioned federal investigations into maritime imports. Vincent noticed. He didn't react. Nina followed his gaze. Work? She asked. Background noise, he replied. She watched him for a moment. You always look like you're calculating. I usually am. And right now? He met her eyes. Right now I'm assessing peace. She smiled faintly. Is it measurable? Yes. And? Fragile. She took a slow sip of her coffee. You don't trust quiet. I don't trust coincidence. As if on cue, his phone buzzed. He didn't check it immediately. she noticed. You're not going to answer? Not yet. Why? Because if it's important, it will wait 60 seconds. That almost made her laugh. That's the most rebellious thing I've heard you say. He allowed the smallest hint of a smile. After a moment, he glanced at the screen. Unknown number. He didn't show her. He answered calmly. Yes. A man's voice responded, measured, unfamiliar. Mr. Moretti, we need to talk. About? About the image taken this morning. Vincent's posture shifted by less than an inch. I don't respond to vague threats, he said evenly. It's not a threat, the man replied. It's leverage. Nina watched Vincent's face. She could see the shift now, the subtle tightening around his eyes. Explain. Vincent said calmly. There are people, the voice continued, who would pay well for proof of your personal vulnerabilities. Vincent's tone remained steady. Everyone has vulnerabilities. Yes, the man agreed, but not everyone has a federal task force already sniffing around maritime imports. Nina felt her stomach drop. Vincent's voice did not change. If you're attempting extortion, be concise. I prefer negotiation, the man said. Then negotiate. A meeting, the voice replied. Tonight. You alone. Vincent's eyes moved briefly to Nina. Location. Text incoming. The call ended. Vincent's phone buzzed again with an address. South Boston. Private dock. Nina stared at him. What is it? Business, he replied. That's not true. He held her gaze. It's adjacent. Her voice dropped. Is this because of me? No. Don't lie. He exhaled slowly. Someone photographed us. Her eyes widened. In the park? Yes. And now? They want leverage. She set her cup down carefully. Against you. Yes. Using me. Yes. Silence settled between them. I knew it, she whispered. I knew this wasn't over. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. Vincent leaned slightly closer. There are competitors who believe personal attachments create weakness. And you just confirmed it. No, he said evenly. They assumed it. That's worse. He didn't argue. What do they want? She asked. A meeting. Are you going? Yes. Alone? Yes. That's stupid. It's necessary. She shook her head. This is exactly what I was afraid of. They would have moved regardless, he said. You're not the cause. You're the excuse. That doesn't make me feel better. It's not meant to. She stared at him. You're walking into something. Yes. And you're calm. Yes. How? Because panic doesn't solve leverage. She leaned back in her chair, heart racing. Who are they? Possibly investors who prefer shadows. That's vague. It's intentional. She rubbed her temples. I don't want to be a bargaining chip. You won't be. You can't guarantee that. He met her eyes directly. I can. How? Because I won't allow negotiations that include you. That sounds like pride. It's boundary. She studied him. And if they push? His voice dropped half a degree. They won't. Across town, Daniel Carter stared at the same photograph on his kitchen table. He had sent it to no one, yet someone else had it. He dialed the unknown number that had messaged him earlier. It rang twice. Yes, the voice answered. You're playing a dangerous game, Daniel said. The man on the other end chuckled softly. You're not in control anymore, Mr. Carter. Daniel's jaw tightened. What do you want? Influence, the man replied. You know your son's weaknesses better than anyone. Daniel stared at the photograph again. Vincent and Nina. Peaceful, he swallowed slowly. He doesn't have weaknesses, Daniel muttered. The man laughed. Everyone does. Back in the cafe, Nina leaned forward. I'm not staying out of this. Yes, you are. No. Vincent's tone remained steady. This is not your arena. You don't get to decide that. I do when the threat vector is external. She stared at him. You talk like a war map, because that's how they think. And how do you think? He paused. About keeping you untouched. Her chest tightened. I don't want to be untouched, she said quietly. I want to be informed. He held her gaze. You are informed. That's not the same as involved. No, he agreed. It's not. A long silence passed between them. Finally, she said softly. If something happens tonight, it won't. You don't know that. I know probabilities. And what's the probability you're underestimating? He didn't answer immediately. Low, he said. She almost smiled despite the tension. You're impossible. So I've been told. Outside, the street bustled with afternoon movement. Life continued. But beneath the surface, currents were shifting. New players were stepping forward. And this time, the conflict wasn't about a broken family. It was about power, reputation, and the cost of attachment. Vincent finished his coffee and stood. I'll have someone walk you home. She stood too. I don't need. You don't, he agreed. But you'll have it. She exhaled sharply. Be careful tonight. I always am. As they stepped outside into the cool Boston air. Neither of them noticed the black sedan parked 2 blocks away. Inside it, a camera lens lowered slowly, and somewhere near the docks of South Boston, a meeting was already being prepared. The South Boston docks were quiet after dark, not empty, never empty, but quieter. The wind carried the sharp scent of salt and diesel. Container cranes stood like steel skeletons against the night sky. Sodium lights cast long shadows across the concrete. Vincent arrived alone. No convoy. No visible security. Just a black sedan parked beneath a broken warehouse light. Appear alone. Never be alone. He stepped out of the car, coat buttoned, hands relaxed at his sides. A figure emerged from the shadow near the pier. Mid-40s, expensive overcoat, no visible weapons, the kind of man who preferred contracts to fists. Mr. Moretti, the man said smoothly. I appreciate punctuality. Vincent didn't offer his hand. You arranged the photograph. Yes. For what purpose? The man smiled faintly. Clarity. Be specific. Your competitors believe you operate without weakness, the man said. They believe that makes you dangerous. I believe the opposite. Vincent's expression remained neutral. Continue. You have an attachment, the man said. Attachments create leverage. Leverage creates opportunity. And you're opportunistic, Vincent replied calmly. I'm pragmatic. The wind shifted between them. You're testing a theory, Vincent said. Yes. And what's the hypothesis? That you'll compromise. Vincent's voice stayed even. You miscalculated. The man tilted his head slightly. Did I? Vincent stepped forward 1 pace. Photographs are not leverage, he said calmly. Proof of wrongdoing is leverage. Proof of vulnerability is invitation. The man studied him carefully. You're under federal scrutiny, he said lightly. Customs audits, import reviews, increased oversight. I'm compliant. Compliance doesn't protect reputation. No, Vincent agreed. It protects structure. The man smiled faintly. You're calm for someone being circled. I've been circled before. Not like this. Vincent's eyes hardened slightly. You're not circling, he said. You're probing. The man didn't deny it. I represent interests, he said. They want access. To routes, contracts, influence. Vincent understood. They weren't after Nina. They were after ports. She was the pressure point. And if I refuse? Vincent asked calmly. The man shrugged. The photograph becomes public. Questions get asked. Patterns get examined. Vincent didn't blink. You're assuming scandal. I'm assuming narrative, the man corrected. And what narrative would that be? Respected shipping executive secretly entangled in domestic instability involving a known violent offender. Vincent's jaw tightened by a fraction. Daniel Carter is irrelevant. Is he? The man asked. His record isn't clean. Neither are some of your associates. Vincent stepped closer. You're playing with edges you don't understand. The man's smile faded slightly. Are you threatening me? No, Vincent said. I'm educating you. Silence stretched between them. The waves lapped quietly against the pier. You won't give us access, the man concluded. No. You won't negotiate. No. You won't sever the attachment. Vincent's voice dropped half a degree. No. The man studied him carefully. Then you're more sentimental than they believed. Vincent's expression didn't change. You misread strength. And how do you define it? The man asked. By what you protect, Vincent replied evenly. Not what you exploit. For a moment, the man seemed almost amused. You think this is about morality? No, Vincent said calmly. It's about boundaries. A black SUV rolled slowly past at the edge of the dock road. Unmarked, unremarkable. Insurance, the man noticed. So you didn't come alone. I never said I would. A pause. You're not going to attack me, the man said. No. Why not? Because you're not the decision maker. The man's eyes narrowed slightly. You assume a hierarchy. I know one, Vincent replied. Silence. The man adjusted his coat. You'll hear from us again. I'm counting on it. The man gave a small nod, then turned and walked back toward the shadows near the warehouse. Vincent remained where he was until the man disappeared completely. Only then did he take out his phone. Trace him, he said quietly. But don't spook him. He ended the call and looked out over the dark harbor. This wasn't about Nina anymore. It was about perception. Someone believed he'd softened. That belief had to be corrected. Across town, Nina sat on her couch. Lights off. Phone in her hand. She hadn't turned on the television. She hadn't opened a book. She just waited. Her phone buzzed. It was Vincent. Done. She typed back immediately. Are you okay? Yes. What happened? Testing. Did you pass? A brief pause. Yes. She stared at the screen. Come over, she typed before she could overthink it. There was a longer pause this time. Then, on my way. 40 minutes later, he stood in her doorway. No suit jacket now. Just a dark shirt and the same controlled posture. She stepped aside to let him in. He looked tired, not physically. Strategically, they wanted access, he said without prompting. To what? Ports, contracts, and me? A lever. She swallowed. I hate that word. So do I. She stepped closer. Are we safe? He looked at her carefully. Yes. That's not vague? No. She searched his face. You didn't give them anything. No. Even if it makes things harder. Yes. Her chest tightened. You could have walked away from me, she said quietly. Made it simpler. Yes. But you didn't. No. Silence filled the room. For someone who talks about control, she said softly. You're making a very uncontrolled choice. He met her eyes. It's measured. She shook her head slightly. You're risking reputation. I've built enough to withstand scrutiny. You're risking escalation. I calculated that. You're risking me. That made him pause. I'm protecting you, he said. That's not the same thing. A long silence stretched between them. Finally, she stepped forward and rested her forehead briefly against his chest. Not dramatic. Not desperate. Just steady. I don't want to be your weakness, she said quietly. He placed one hand lightly on her back. You're not, he said evenly. You're the line. She pulled back slightly. The line? The one I don't let anyone cross. Her eyes softened. You're not good at normal relationships, are you? No. Good, she said faintly. Neither am I. Outside, the black sedan from earlier idled 2 streets away. Inside, a man reviewed the dockside footage on a tablet. Vincent refusing. Vincent, standing firm. He frowned. He didn't bend, he muttered. On the other end of the call, a voice replied calmly. Then we apply pressure somewhere else. Back in the apartment, Nina looked up at Vincent. Do you ever get tired of fighting? Yes. And? I don't stop. She nodded slowly. I don't want a life that's always this close to conflict. It won't be, he said. You can't promise that. No, he admitted. But I can promise something else. What? That I won't let anyone turn you into currency. Her throat tightened. I believe you. He held her gaze. Good. Outside, the harbor lights flickered in the distance. The dock meeting had ended without violence. But pressure doesn't disappear when it fails. It redirects. And somewhere in the city, someone had just decided that if Vincent Moretti wouldn't bend, then something or someone near him would have to. The pressure didn't arrive loudly. It arrived quietly. 2 mornings later, a plain white envelope was slipped under Nina's apartment door. No postage. No return address. She found it when she stepped out to leave for work. Her name was written in neat block letters. Nina Carter. Her stomach tightened instantly. She crouched and picked it up slowly, as if it might explode. Inside was a single photograph. Not the one from the park. This one was older, faded, grainy, to her, at 16. Standing outside her high school, and behind her, half visible in the frame, Vincent, younger, watching from across the street. Her breath left her lungs. She sat down hard against the wall. He had come back. He had been there. The photograph slipped from her fingers. Her phone shook in her hand as she dialed. Vincent answered on the first ring. Yes. There's a photo, she said, her voice thin. From when I was 16. Silence on his end. Describe it. Outside East Boston High, she whispered. You were there. Another pause. Yes, he said quietly. You followed me? I checked on you. For how long? A few months. Her chest tightened painfully. You said you weren't strong enough. I wasn't. Then what was that? Preparation. She swallowed. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want it to feel like surveillance. It feels worse, she said. I know. Silence filled the line. Is there anything else in the envelope? He asked. No. Just the photo. Dime. Don't touch it again. I already did. That's fine. I'll send someone. I don't want someone. You're getting someone. She closed her eyes. This is them, isn't it? Yes. Why this photo? Because it creates doubt. Her breathing grew uneven. You were there. Yes. You didn't talk to me. No. Why? He didn't answer immediately. Because I wanted to see who you were without me influencing it. That's not noble, she whispered. That's distance. Yes. And now they're using it. Yes. There was no defensiveness in his voice, just acknowledgement. She leaned her head back against the door. I don't like that you watched me. I know. I don't like that you didn't tell me. I know. I don't like that I understand why you did. That made him pause. Understanding doesn't equal approval, he said. I'm aware. A knock sounded at her door. She froze. I didn't call anyone, she whispered. I did, Vincent replied. You were already... I anticipated. She opened the door slowly. One of Vincent's security men stood there. Calm, polite, middle-aged. Miss Carter, he said respectfully. Mr. Moretti asked me to retrieve the envelope. She handed it over without speaking. He slipped on gloves before touching it. Professional. Precisi. He left without another word. Nina shut the door again and leaned against it. You don't get to anticipate my fear, she said quietly into the phone. I'm not anticipating fear, Vincent replied. I'm anticipating behavior. It feels the same. Silence. I'll come over, he said. No. Yes. I need to think. I'd prefer proximity. I know you would. He exhaled slowly. Okay. She lowered the phone. He didn't argue further. That unsettled her more than pressure would have. 2 hours later, Vincent sat in his office reviewing the photograph under bright white light. The image was authentic. No edits. He had been there. 16-year-old Nina laughing with friends. Him across the street. Watching. Waiting. Leak timing? He asked quietly. Coordinated, his security chief replied. They want you defensive. Vincent nodded once. They're trying to shift the narrative, the man continued. Make you look obsessive. I was, Vincent said calmly. The security chief hesitated. That's not how I'd frame it. Truth doesn't require framing. The man cleared his throat. We traced the envelope drop. Delivery vehicle registered to a shell company tied to Harbor Meridian Logistics. Vincent's eyes sharpened. The same interests from the dock. Yes. Vincent stood slowly. They've moved from negotiation to character attack. Yes. Then we respond proportionally. How? Vincent picked up the photograph again. By making it clear that proximity to her is not weakness. He set the image down. And by reminding them what actual leverage looks like. Across town, Nina sat on her couch, staring at her phone. Her mind replayed that 16-year-old version of herself. Had she sensed him? Had she felt watched? Or had she simply lived unaware? Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello? The same smooth voice from before. You received our message. Her spine stiffened. What do you want? Transparency, the man replied. You want him to look unstable. We want him to look human. He is human. Exactly. She swallowed. You think this scares me? It should. It doesn't. A pause. You're braver than anticipated, the man said. No, she replied quietly. I'm tired. Silence. You're the pressure point, he said. You don't have to be. And how do I stop being one? Step away. Her jaw tightened. You think I'm currency. We think you're leverage. She closed her eyes. You don't know him. We know enough. You don't, she said firmly. You think you're safe, the man continued calmly. You think he can shield you from consequences. I don't need shielding. You need distance. No, she said evenly. He does. The man was silent for a moment. Interesting. She hung up. Her hands were shaking now, not from fear, from anger. An hour later, Vincent arrived at her door despite her earlier refusal. She opened it. You shouldn't have come, she said. I know. He stepped inside. You saw it, she said. Yes. You followed me. Yes. She studied him. Say it plainly. I watched you from a distance to ensure you were safe. Without asking. Yes. Without telling me. Yes. She paced once across the room. I don't like that. I understand. But I also understand why. He didn't interrupt. They think this makes you look unstable, she continued. Obsessive. It doesn't matter how it looks, he said calmly. It does, she countered. Because perception is what they're manipulating. He paused. Yes. She stepped closer. They're not attacking your business, she said quietly. They're attacking your identity. He held her gaze. Then we don't defend, he said. We don't? No. Then what? We redefine. She frowned slightly. How? Dawn. He stepped closer. Publicly. Her eyes widened. You're not serious. I am. You think announcing what? That I'm your sister? That you watched me from afar for years? Yes. That will make this better? It removes mystery, he said calmly. Mystery feeds narrative. She stared at him. You'd expose everything. Yes. Your reputation. Yes. Your history. Yes. Silence. You'd do that for me. I'd do that for truth. Her throat tightened. You really don't see this as weakness, do you? No, he said. I see it as line. She let out a slow breath. They're trying to pull us apart. Yes. And you want to step closer. Yes. She studied him for a long moment. You're impossible. So I've been told. She didn't smile this time. Okay, she said finally. Then we don't hide. He nodded once. Outside, the black sedan from before idled again 2 blocks away. Inside, the same man reviewed a live feed from a small camera planted in a parked car across the street. They're not fracturing, he muttered. On the other end of the call, a voice responded, then escalate. Back inside the apartment, Nina looked at Vincent. If we do this, she said quietly, there's no going back. I don't intend to go back, he replied. And for the first time since the photograph had arrived, she didn't feel like leverage. She felt like decision. The press conference was not dramatic. Vincent refused drama. It was held in the lobby of Moretti Shipping's headquarters, glass walls. American flag behind the podium. City skyline visible through clean lines of steel and light. Respectable. Established. Controlled. Reporters gathered because they had been invited, not because something had exploded. That was intentional. Nina stood slightly behind him. Not hidden. Not showcased. Present. Her hands were steady. He had offered her the option not to attend. She had refused. If this was going to be public, she would not be an afterthought. Vincent adjusted the microphone. Cameras clicked. Good afternoon, he began, voice calm, even, unmistakably controlled. I understand there have been questions raised regarding my personal life, and certain photographs circulating in private channels. A few reporters leaned forward. He did not rush. For clarity, he continued. The woman referenced in those materials is Nina Carter. She is my sister. Murmurs rippled immediately. Vincent did not look back at Nina. He kept his gaze forward. 23 years ago, our parents divorced. I remained with our mother. Nina remained with our father. Contact was severed. Recently, we reconnected. Flashbulbs flared. No crime, he said evenly. No scandal. No impropriety. A reporter raised her hand sharply. Mr. Moretti, were you surveilling Miss Carter in the past? Vincent didn't flinch. I ensured her safety from a distance during a period in which I had reason to believe she was vulnerable. Without her knowledge? Yes. Nina felt the room shift. Transparency is destabilizing when people expect evasion. Why didn't you come forward sooner? Another reporter asked. Because reconciliation is personal, Vincent replied. But weaponizing family history is not. His eyes hardened slightly. Let me be clear, he continued. Attempts to imply instability or coercion are false. Attempts to leverage my sister's past to influence business negotiations will fail. There it was. Not loud, not angry, just precise. One reporter leaned forward. Are you suggesting corporate intimidation? I'm stating that I do not negotiate under threat, Vincent replied calmly. The room went still. Mr. Wyde, Moretti, a journalist from a major Boston outlet, said carefully. Does this mean you believe a competitor is responsible for the leaked material? Vincent allowed a small pause. I believe some parties mistake silence for weakness. He stepped back from the podium. That concludes my statement. No shouting. No spectacle. He turned slightly toward Nina. For a fraction of a second, their eyes met. Not rehearsed. Not theatrical. Then they left together. By evening, every major Boston news outlet had picked up the story. The headline wasn't scandal. It was reunion. Shipping executive reconnects with long-lost sister amid corporate pressure. The narrative had shifted, but pressure doesn't disappear. It mutates. That night, in a private office overlooking the harbor, the same smooth-voiced man from the dock watched the press replay. He's not hiding, he said quietly. Across from him sat a heavier man in his late 50s. Expensive suit. Political smile. No, the older man replied. He's daring. He's reframing. He's escalating. The younger man frowned. You told me he would protect business first. I was wrong. The older man folded his hands. He's protecting legacy. And legacy is harder to fracture. The younger man's jaw tightened. Then we stop nudging, he said. We push. Across town, Nina sat at her kitchen table with Vincent, 2 cups of coffee between them. Neither had been touched. You didn't hesitate, she said quietly. No, you admitted everything. Yes, you knew they'd ask about watching me. Yes, and you still did it. Yes, she exhaled slowly. I'm not used to men standing still when confronted. I'm not used to being confronted by amateurs. That earned a faint smile from her. Then it faded. Are they done? She asked. No. The honesty didn't comfort her. What's next? They'll test elsewhere. Business? Possibly. Or me. He didn't answer immediately. That's already in motion, he said finally. Her stomach tightened. How? Today was public strength, he said calmly. They'll look for private vulnerability. A knock at the door cut through the room. Both froze. Vincent's phone vibrated simultaneously. He checked the screen. Unknown number. He answered. Yes. A distorted voice responded. You chose publicity. Bold. Vincent's expression did not shift. You're persistent. You embarrassed us. You embarrassed yourselves. A slight pause. You think transparency makes you untouchable? No, Vincent replied evenly. I think it makes you predictable. You're confident. I'm accurate. The voice shifted tone. Check your sister's car. The line went dead. Nina's blood ran cold. Vincent moved immediately. Stay here, he said. No. He looked at her once, then nodded. They went downstairs together. Her car sat where it always did, blazing streetlight reflecting off the windshield. Nothing obvious. Vincent stopped her before she stepped closer. He scanned the underside, the tires, the hood, then he saw it. A small black device magnetized beneath the rear bumper. Tracking. Not explosive. Tracking. Nina's breath shook. They were watching. Yes. How long? He didn't answer. He pulled out his phone. Remove it, he said calmly into the line, and sweep the building. Within minutes, 2 security vehicles arrived. Discreet, efficient, the device was bagged, handled, gone, but the message remained. Back upstairs, Nina paced. They want me scared, she said. Yes. I am. He stepped closer. That's normal. I don't want normal, she snapped. I want safe. You are safe. They put a tracker on my car, and it's gone. That's not the point. He studied her. You're right, he said. She stopped pacing. What? It's not the point. Silence stretched. The point, he continued evenly, is that they crossed from implication to action. And now they've miscalculated. Her eyes searched his face. You said you don't escalate. I don't, he replied calmly. I respond proportionally. And what does proportional look like? His voice dropped slightly. Consequences. Not loud, not theatrical, just certain. Across the harbor, the older man in the suit received a call. They found the device, the younger operative said. And? He didn't panic. A long pause. He won't, the older man said. Then what? Then we stop treating him like a businessman. The younger man hesitated. And treat him like what? The older man's expression hardened. What he used to be. Back in Nina's apartment, Vincent stood near the window, watching the street below. They wanted to see how you react under stress, he said quietly. How did I react? You didn't run. She swallowed. I thought about it. That's human. She stepped closer to him. I don't want to be the reason this becomes worse. You're not the reason. They're using me. They're failing. She looked up at him. And if they don't? His jaw set slightly. They will. Silence settled between them. Not peaceful. Not yet. But solid. You said I'm the line, she said quietly. Yes. Then what happens when someone crosses it? His eyes met hers. They don't get a warning. Outside, sirens wailed faintly in the distance. The city moved on, unaware that somewhere within it, boundaries had just been redrawn. And this time, escalation wouldn't be subtle. The response came 48 hours later, not in the form of another envelope, not a tracker, not a threat. It came as an audit. Federal agents walked into Moretti shipping at 9:12 a.m. on a Thursday. Badges visible, paperwork precise, expressions neutral, routine compliance review. That was the phrase. Routine. The kind of word that can dismantle an empire slowly without ever raising its voice. Vincent watched from his office window as agents moved through the lobby below. Employees stayed calm. Lawyers were already on site. Files were produced without hesitation. He had prepared for this version. He had not prepared for the other one. His phone vibrated. Yun's voice was controlled, but tighter than usual. Daniel Carter is missing. Vincent didn't blink. Explain. He didn't show up to his parole check-in this morning. No call. No record of hospital admission. His apartment was left open. Vincent's jaw hardened. When? Within the last 12 hours. Vincent understood immediately. The audit was noise. Daniel was the message. Locate him, Vincent said quietly. We're trying. Not trying. Yun paused. Yes, sir. Vincent ended the call and looked back down at the federal agents combing through his lobby. Diversion. Classic. He stepped out of his office and addressed his legal team calmly. Full cooperation, he said. Nothing obstructed. Nothing delayed. Then he left the building. No one stopped him. They were too busy performing routine. Across town, Nina was at the community center where she had begun volunteering 3 afternoons a week, a reading program for middle school students. She had just finished helping a quiet 12-year-old boy pronounce difficult words from To Kill a Mockingbird when her phone buzzed. Vincent. She stepped into the hallway. Yes? Daniel is missing. The words hit harder than expected. What do you mean missing? He didn't report to parole. Apartment unsecured. Her hand tightened around the phone. They took him. Yes. Why? To pull you back into instability. Her throat tightened. He's not my responsibility. No, Vincent said calmly. But he's a symbol. She closed her eyes. I don't want him hurt. He won't be. You can't promise that. No, he admitted. But I can control how this ends. How? Silence lingered a fraction too long. Stay where you are, he said. I'm not hiding. You're not hiding. You're anchoring. She swallowed. Vincent. Yes. Don't become who they think you are. A pause. I'm not, he said. I'm becoming who they underestimated. The call ended. By late afternoon, Vincent stood in an abandoned warehouse along the Chelsea waterfront. The air smelled of rust and salt. Daniel sat tied to a metal chair in the center of the concrete floor, bruised, not broken. 2 men stood nearby. The younger operative from the docks leaned casually against a crate. You came, he said. Vincent walked forward slowly. You escalated incorrectly. The younger man smirked faintly. You're still calm. Yes. Your sister must be proud. Vincent didn't react. What do you want? He asked evenly. Access. You're repetitive. And you're stubborn. The younger man gestured toward Daniel. Unstable ex-husband. Criminal record. Public embarrassment. Waiting to happen. Daniel looked up weakly. I didn't tell them anything, he muttered. Vincent didn't take his eyes off the younger man. You think handing him back destabilized fixes anything? Vincent asked. No, the man replied. But it reminds her what chaos feels like. Vincent stepped closer. You misunderstand something. Oh? She already survived chaos. The younger man's smile thinned. We're not threatening her life. I know. We're threatening comfort. Vincent nodded once. And you believe comfort is what I protect. The man tilted his head. Isn't it? Vincent stepped within arm's reach now. I protect choice, he said quietly. The warehouse felt suddenly smaller. You're in no position to posture. The younger man warned. Vincent's gaze didn't shift. You made a mistake. Oh? You assumed I would respond privately. And? Vincent's phone vibrated in his hand. He didn't look at it. It's already public. The younger man's expression flickered. What is? Vincent finally glanced at the screen and turned it slightly so the man could see. Live news coverage. Federal authorities announcing the arrest of 2 executives from Harbor Meridian Logistics for financial fraud and illegal customs manipulation. The older man in the expensive suit was being escorted into a black SUV, handcuffed. The younger operative's face drained slightly. I don't negotiate under threat, Vincent repeated calmly. You set this up. No, Vincent said. I uncovered it. While you were focused on optics, Vincent continued evenly, I was auditing supply chains. Silence slammed into the warehouse. You think this ends it? The younger man hissed. It ends your leverage. The man glanced at his phone. Missed calls. Multiple. Panic creeping in. You used the audit, he realized. Yes. You fed them. I complied. Daniel shifted weakly in the chair. Vincent finally looked at him. Untee him. The younger man didn't move. Vincent's voice dropped half a degree. You're no longer backed. The pause stretched. Then one of the men stepped forward and cut Daniel free. Daniel nearly collapsed. Vincent caught him before he hit the floor. Not gently, but firmly. You're done, Vincent said to him quietly. No more proximity to her. No more narratives. Daniel nodded shakily. Yes. Vincent handed him off to Yoon, who had entered silently through the side door. The younger operative stared at Vincent. This isn't over. It is, Vincent replied calmly. For you. He turned to leave. You're still who they say you are, the man called after him. Vincent paused at the door. No, he said without turning back. I'm who they forgot I was. He walked out. By evening, Harbor Meridian's stock had plummeted. Federal charges were trending across financial news outlets. The narrative had shifted permanently. Back at Nina's apartment, she opened the door before Vincent could knock. You found him? Yes. He's safe? Yes. And it's finished. She searched his face. Finished how? Legally. She exhaled slowly. You didn't hurt anyone. No. You didn't disappear anyone. No. You didn't burn anything down. No. She stepped closer. You fought in daylight. Yes. Silence. She studied him carefully. You could have done it differently. Yes. But you didn't. No. Her eyes softened. That matters. He didn't respond immediately. I won't let them drag us backward, he said finally. She nodded once. I know. Outside, the city lights flickered over the harbor. The audit would close. The arrests would move through court. Daniel would relocate quietly out of state under supervision arranged through Vincent's attorneys. No headlines. No blood. Just consequence. Weeks later, Nina stood beside Vincent at the edge of Boston Harbor. Late evening. Wind moving across the water. You know, she said softly. Most people would have told me to run from this. Most people don't understand endurance, he replied. She smiled faintly. You're not cold. I am. No, she said. You're controlled. A pause. You stepped into the line, she added quietly. Yes. And when they crossed it, they learned. She slipped her hand into his. Not fragile. Not dependent. Equal. They tried to make me your weakness, she said. You're not. What am I? He looked out over the water before answering. You're proof. Of what? That loyalty doesn't have to be loud to be unbreakable. The harbor remained calm. No sirens. No threats. Just water against steel. Vincent Moretti had not changed his nature. He had refined it. And Nina Carter was no longer leverage. She was choice. And no one in Boston mistook that for weakness again. This story reminds us that strength is not measured by how loudly a person can dominate a room, but by what they choose to protect when it would be easier to walk away. Real power is not cruelty, and loyalty is not weakness. When the world tries to turn love into leverage and family into currency, integrity becomes the quiet act of standing firm without losing your soul. Justice does not always arrive with sirens and headlines. Sometimes it comes through restraint, truth spoken plainly, and the refusal to let fear dictate your choices. In the end, dignity is not about winning every battle, it is about knowing who you are when the pressure rises, and choosing to protect what matters most without becoming the very thing you oppose. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real, and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.